He was my mortal enemy until I fell for him. I was raised to hate them. From the moment I could walk, I was told werewolves were our greatest enemies, savage beasts, incapable of reason, driven only by their animal instincts. I had seen what they could do, entire covens wiped out in the dead of night, blood staining the earth, bodies torn apart as if they were nothing more than prey. My kind had spent centuries fighting them, and I had never once questioned it. War was all I knew. So when I was given the mission to track and kill Vincent, I didn't hesitate. The elders spoke of him in grave tones, a werewolf unlike the others, dangerous, elusive, a threat to our entire species. He had evaded every hunter sent after him, leaving nothing behind but the scent of blood and the whispers of his name. I expected this hunt to be like all the others. Find the target, eliminate the target, return victorious. Simple. But nothing about Vincent would be simple. I found him by the river, standing in the moonlight like he belonged to it. I had imagined a monster, hulking, feral, dripping with the blood of his victims. Instead, I saw a man, young, maybe in his early 20s, tall, broad-shouldered, with a body carved from muscle, but there was an ease to the way he stood, like the world itself bent to his presence. His skin was warm olive, a contrast to my own unnatural pallor. And his face? Beautiful. That was the only word for it. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, full lips that curled in the slightest smirk, like he knew something I didn't. His eyes, though, those were what caught me off guard. They weren't mild or mindless, they were sharp, knowing, golden, glowing in the night, locked right onto me. "Finally," he said, voice deep, smooth. "Took you long enough?" I didn't answer. I lunged. The fight was long, brutal. I had fought countless werewolves before, but Vincent moved differently. He wasn't just strong, he was smart. Every attack I threw, he countered. Every move I made, he matched. Claws against steel, fangs bared, both of us pushing, neither giving an inch. I slashed, he dodged. He struck, I blocked. The world narrowed to the rhythm of battle, the pounding of my undead heart, the adrenaline surging through my veins. Then, I felt it. A shift in the air, a scent carried on the wind, iron and death, not ours. Vincent smelled it too. We broke apart just as the first arrow struck the ground between us. Hunters, human, heavily armed. Vincent swore. "You brought company?" I shook my head. "They're not mine." A second arrow, closer. We had seconds. Vincent's jaw tightened, eyes flicking to the trees. Truce? Everything in me screamed no, but survival always came first. "Truce," I muttered. And just like that, the enemy I had been sent to kill became my only chance at making it out alive. We ran, through the trees, over the river, deeper into the mountains. The hunters were relentless, but we knew the land better. It took hours, but eventually, we lost them. I should have left then. The truce was over, my mission was still the same, but I didn't, and neither did he. Vincent sat on a fallen log, catching his breath. Even exhausted, he looked annoyingly perfect, like some kind of wild god carved from stone. His hair was a mess, his shirt torn, but he didn't seem to care. "You fought better than most leeches," he said. I scoffed. "You're not as brainless as I expected." A smirk. That almost sounded like a compliment. It wasn't, but it wasn't an insult either, and that was unsettling. We kept moving. Not together, but not apart either. We didn't talk much, but it was impossible to ignore the way we fell into rhythm, watching each other's backs, moving in sync, reacting to danger without a word. I hated it. Hated how easy it was. One night, we made camp in a cave. I didn't need sleep, but Vincent did. He stretched out near the fire, golden eyes flickering in the dim light. "You ever wonder what it's like?" he asked suddenly. I frowned. "What?" "Not being enemies." I didn't answer, because no, I hadn't wondered, because wondering was dangerous. He sighed, like he already knew. Figured. He closed his eyes, but I didn't move. I just watched him, listening to the steady rhythm of his breathing. This was wrong. Every instinct in me screamed it, but for the first time in my existence, I ignored them. Days passed. The tension between us changed. Still sharp, but different. Less like a blade to the throat, more like a spark waiting to catch fire. I noticed things I shouldn't. The way his lips curled when he was amused. The way his voice roughened when he was tired. The way he looked at me, not with hatred, not anymore, but something far worse. Understanding. I caught him watching me too. He didn't look away. This was dangerous, forbidden, impossible, and I couldn't stop. The fire crackled between us, but it wasn't what kept me warm. It was him, his presence, his gaze, the unbearable tension stretching between us. Vincent leaned back against the cave wall, arms folded, watching me like he was trying to solve a puzzle. "You keep looking at me like that," he said, voice rough. "I'm gonna start thinking you like me." I should have denied it, should have laughed it off. Instead, I held his gaze, my throat tight. "And if I did?" A slow smirk tugged at his lips, but his eyes darkened. "Then I'd say we have a problem." The space between us felt too small, too charged. My skin burned where his gaze lingered. He shifted, stretching his legs out, his knee brushing mine. It was barely a touch, but it sent a shock through me. I should have pulled away. I didn't. Vincent exhaled, low and amused. "Damn," he murmured, tilting his head. "You really are beautiful, aren't you?" My breath caught, not at the words, but the way he said them, like it wasn't a compliment, but a confession. I could hear my own heartbeat, could feel the slow, aching pull toward him. And for the first time, I let myself wonder, what if this wasn't wrong? The fire burned low, casting flickering shadows against the cave walls. It wasn't cold, but my skin burned anyway. From him, from the way he looked at me. Steady, unflinching, like he already knew the answer to a question I hadn't asked yet. Vincent sat close, closer than he should, closer than I should have let him. But I didn't move away. His eyes, golden and dark with something I wasn't ready to name, flicked down to my mouth. Just for a second, barely a heartbeat, but I felt it, like a lightning strike. Something inside me snapped. Before I could think, before I could stop myself, I reached out. Just a breath of a touch, fingers brushing against his jaw. His skin was warm, rough beneath my fingertips. He didn't pull away, he didn't flinch. He just leaned in. The space between us disappeared. I didn't know who moved first. Maybe it was him, maybe it was me, but maybe it didn't matter. All I knew was the moment our lips met, the world outside that cave ceased to exist. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't careful, it was fire and desperation. Years of instinct screaming at me that this was wrong, only for my body to say no, this is right. Vincent's hands tangled in my hair, pulling me closer, and I let him. I wanted him to. He kissed me like he fought, fierce, unrelenting, alive. And I kissed him back like I was starving for it. For him. My back hit the cave wall. I barely noticed. All I could feel was the heat of his body pressed against mine, the sharp hitch of his breath when I dragged my fingers down his spine. This was dangerous. This was insane. And I didn't care. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. Vincent rested his forehead against mine, eyes half-lidded, pupils blown wide. His lips were swollen, red from mine. Neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. I knew what this was, what it meant, and so did he. The night stretched on, but we stayed there, wrapped in heat and silence, our hands still on each other, neither of us willing to move. Eventually, morning came. The world settled, the hunters were gone. It was safe now. We could return. But neither of us stood. Neither of us said, "Let's go," because for the first time in our lives, We had nowhere else we wanted to be. I shouldn't be here. I know that, and yet here I am, leaning against a crumbling stone wall, waiting in the shadows like a fool. Vincent's scent reaches me before he does, that familiar mix of earth and wildfire. He moves through the ruins like he belongs there. Like he belongs with me. Dangerous thought. I told you not to come, I say when he's close enough. You're here too, he shoots back, crossing his arms. What's your excuse? I don't have one. Instead, I look past him, scanning the trees. The war is getting worse. More patrols, more bodies piling up on both sides. If we're seen together, it won't just be suspension. It'll be a death sentence. We can't do this anymore, I tell him. It's reckless. Something flickers in his golden eyes. So what? We just pretend none of this happened? None of this? The long nights spent talking instead of fighting, the bruises that turn to careful touches, the way my undead heart twists when I think about walking away. Yes, I say, even though it's a lie. His jaw clenches. He looks like he wants to argue. Maybe he would have, if not for the distant sound of voices. Vampires, my people. I don't hesitate. I grab Vincent's wrist, pull him into the shadows with me. My body presses against his, my hand clamping over his mouth before he can make a sound. We stand like that, silent, listening as the voices pass. Too close. When I finally let go, he exhales shakily. Still think this is nothing? I don't answer. I can't, because I know now. This isn't nothing, and it never was. The words hit me like a stake to the heart. Find the werewolf, my commander says. Bring him in, dead or alive. I don't react. I can't afford to. I nod once, accepting the order like it doesn't change everything. Like it doesn't feel like a noose tightening around my neck. Vincent. They want Vincent. It shouldn't matter. He's a werewolf. I'm a vampire. This is how it's always been. But the idea of hunting him or hurting him turns my stomach. I wait until I'm alone to let out a slow breath. There's no way out of this. If I refuse, they'll know something's wrong. If I hesitate, they'll send someone else, someone who won't hesitate. I have two options: betray my people or betray him. I don't like either choice. The moment I see him, I know. This isn't Vincent, the stubborn, sharp-tongued wolf who smirks when he should be afraid. This is a warrior, a soldier of his people, and I am the same. The last time we stood together, we were something else. Not quite enemies, not quite anything at all, but that's over now. He stands across from me, muscles tensed, golden eyes burning. I draw my blade. He bares his fangs. This is what we're supposed to do. I should move first. I should strike before he does. That's what they told me. Get rid of the werewolf, dead or alive. But I don't. Neither does he. The wind howls through the empty fields between us, carrying the scent of blood and war. It smells like home, like everything I've ever known, and yet all I can focus on is the way his chest rises and falls, the way his fingers twitch like he's fighting himself as much as he's fighting me. I grip my sword tighter. He grits his teeth. 1 second drags into 2, then 3, then a rustle in the trees. I know what it means before I even turn my head. More soldiers, more eyes watching. If we don't do something now, the choice will be taken from us. Vincent hears it too. His gaze flicks past me, then back to my face. His lips part like he's about to say something, but we don't have time for words. Only a heartbeat. Only a decision. I drop my sword. He lunges, but not at me. He grabs my arm and we run. Shouts explode behind us. Arrows slice through the air. A dagger nicks my shoulder, but I don't stop. Neither does he. We move as one, tearing through the darkness, through the trees, through the war we've just declared on both our kinds. They'll call us traitor. They'll hunt us down. But I don't care. Because for the first time in 1,000 years, I'm not running from something. I'm running to something. And I'll fight to the bitter end to keep it. We don't stop running. Not for food, not for rest, not even when my legs scream in protest and the scent of blood, our blood, stains the wind. They're everywhere. Vampires, werewolves, the same creatures who would have gladly killed each other a month ago are now working together to hunt us. Vincent runs beside me, his breathing ragged. He's hurt. I can see the way he favors his side, but he doesn't complain. "We can't keep this up," he grits out. "I know." Ahead, the trees thin out, revealing a cliffside that drops into a river below, a dead end. Behind us, I hear them closing in. Vincent curses under his breath. "You got a plan, bloodsucker?" I glance at him. His face is pale from blood loss, but his golden eyes are fierce, determined. I should be afraid. We're outnumbered, outmatched, but looking at him, I'm not. I take his hand. "Yeah, jump." He doesn't hesitate. We leap together just as arrows pierce the spot where we stood. The wind howls around us, water rushing up to meet us, and for one terrifying second, I wonder if this is how we die. Then we hit the river and the world goes dark. The cave is cold, damp, and stinks of wet fur and old magic. It's been days since we escaped, and we're barely clinging on, wounded, exhausted, hunted. But we found it. The truth. I run my fingers over the carvings on the stone wall, tracing the ancient symbols. They tell a story, one no vampire or werewolf would ever dare speak aloud. Vincent reads over my shoulder, his voice quiet. A vampire and a werewolf, joined by fate. Not enemies, not an abomination. "Something older than war," I murmur. I step back, staring at the mural. It faded, but the image is clear. A vampire and a werewolf standing side by side, their hands clasped, surrounded by their people. Not fighting, not killing. Together. My chest tightens. This isn't just some forgotten story. This is proof. We aren't the first. We were never supposed to be enemies at all. Vincent exhaled sharply. If they see this, they'll have to believe. His silence tells me he's not sure. And honestly, neither am I. But we don't have a choice anymore. We can't keep running, keep hiding, keep waiting for the inevitable. Or we can fight. I turn to him. "What do you want to do?" His gaze meets mine, steady and sure. "What we should have done from the start." The battlefield is a graveyard waiting to happen. Vampires on one side, werewolves on the other. The air is thick with tension, growls, and the low hiss of drawn blades. And then, there's us, standing in the middle, caught between two armies that want us dead. Vincent stands tall beside me, his claws unsheathed, golden eyes blazing. I grip my sword, but I don't raise it. We aren't here to fight. We're here to end this. I step forward. "This war started with a lie." No one moves. I press on. "You've been told for centuries that we're enemies, that we have to kill each other to survive, but that's not the truth." Still nothing. Only rage, suspicion, a slow tightening of grips around weapons. Vincent snarls. "We found the proof. The war was built on a lie." A vampire steps forward, his fangs bared. "You expect us to believe that?" "No." I throw a small, curved stone into the dirt between us. The same symbols from the cave are etched into its surface. "But you can believe this!" Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Some hesitate, others don't care. A werewolf lunges, then a vampire, and just like that, chaos erupts. Vincent moves first, knocking back an attacker before they can reach me. I spin, blade flashing, blocking a strike meant for his heart. We should run. We should escape while we can, but we don't, because we started this war and we're damn sure going to finish it. We should be dead. The battlefield behind us is littered with bodies, some breathing, some not. The war we started, the war we tried to stop, nearly swallowed us whole, but against all odds, we made it. Vincent sits beside me in the ruins of an abandoned temple, pressing a cloth to his bloodied shoulder. He's exhausted, so am I, but we're alive. He glances at me. "That was insane." I let out a breathless laugh. "You're just realizing that now?" He smirks, then winces as he moves. "So, what now? We can't run forever." I look at the carvings on the temple walls, the same symbols we found in the cave, the same story repeating itself. A vampire and a werewolf, standing together, defying fate. We don't run, I say. We prove them wrong. This is it, Vincent mutters, running his fingers over the ancient text. His golden eyes flick to mine. It was never about war. We're deep in the ruins now, standing before a crumbling altar where the story of us was written long before we ever existed. The prophecy is clear. A vampire and a werewolf, bound not by hatred but by fate. Their union will bring either destruction or peace. I exhale. So we weren't the first? Vincent snorts. Nope, but maybe we can be the last. I look at him. The firelight flickers against his face, highlighting every scar, every battle he's fought to be here. They won't believe us, I say. He grins. Then we make them. Hundreds of eyes glare at us. Vampires on one side, werewolves on the other, separated by centuries of bloodshed. And in the middle, us. I swallow the lump in my throat. Vincent stands firm beside me, his fingers brushing mine, just enough to remind me he's there. I step forward. We were taught to hate each other, told it was instinct, that it was in our blood. I pause, meeting their gazes. But that was a lie. Vincent lifts the ancient stone we found, its carvings glowing under the moonlight. Before the war, before the blood, we were meant to stand together. This proves it. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some look curious, others furious. A vampire scoffs. You expect us to forget everything from some old story? No, I say. I expect you to stop being blind. Tension crackles in the air. The moment is fragile, teetering on the edge of chaos. Then, a werewolf, the oldest in the pack, steps forward. His eyes, weathered with time, study the stone. He exhales and kneels. One by one, others follow. Not everyone, not yet, but some. And for the first time in 1,000 years, I see it. Hope. The war isn't over, not completely. There are still those who want us dead, still those who refuse to see the truth, but things are changing, slowly. Vincent and I stand at the edge of a new world, one we never thought we'd live to see. There are still fights to be had, still minds to change, but we're not alone anymore. The first step has been taken. Vincent nudges me. So what now, bloodsucker? I glance at him, at the life in his golden eyes, and I know the answer. I take his hand. Now, we live. And for the first time, we do, without fear. Because in the end, love wasn't our weakness. It was the reason we survived. The morning air is crisp, the scent of pine and earth mixing with the soft golden glow of the rising sun. The forest is quiet, peaceful. It still feels strange, waking up without the weight of war pressing down on our shoulders. Vincent stretches beside me, his bare feet digging into the soft grass. His hair is a mess from sleep, and there's a lazy smile tugging at his lips. He looks at me like he has for the past 2 years, like I'm the best damn thing that's ever happened to him. You're staring, bloodsucker, he teases, his voice still thick with sleep. I smirk. Can you blame me? He rolls his eyes, but doesn't hide the way his smile widens. Our cabin, our home, is nestled between the trees, far enough from the world that it feels like it belongs to us and us alone. The war ended. The council finally accepted what we are, but we still choose this. Peace, freedom, each other. Vincent suddenly shifts, tackling me onto the grass. He straddles my waist, pinning me down with ease, grinning like a wolf that just caught his prey. Thought you were supposed to be the fast one, he taunts. I raise a brow. I'm letting you win. Uh-huh. He leans down, pressing his forehead against mine. Admit it. You like it when I'm on top. I chuckle, wrapping my arms around him. Maybe. His laughter is the best sound in the world. For years we fought for survival. Now, we fight over who gets the last bite of breakfast. We spent centuries being told love between us was impossible. Now, we wake up every morning tangled in each other, knowing there's nowhere else we'd rather be. Vincent presses a kiss to my lips, slow, lingering. When he pulls back, His golden eyes are soft. You happy? I don't even have to think about it. More than I ever thought I'd be. His fingers brush through my hair. Good. Then with a wicked grin, he suddenly bolts up and takes off running. Last one to the lake does dishes. I shake my head, laughing, before chasing him. This is the life we fought for, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. 2 years ago, I never would have believed we'd make it here. Hell, I never would have believed we'd survive at all. We were hunted, hated, called an abomination, but we didn't run. We fought. Not just for ourselves, but for the chance at something more. And somehow we made it. It still feels surreal sometimes, waking up next to Vincent, knowing we don't have to hide, knowing we built this life together. The world isn't perfect. Some still look at us and see something wrong, but we don't care, because we won. And the future? It's ours now. For the first time, we get to live without fear, and we'll do it together. Always. Do you believe love can overcome ancient rivalry? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.